Hello? I don't have the gavel. Thank you. I have to do this myself. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, because I want to welcome you all to the General Session Luncheon. The work of advocating on behalf of our colleges is more important than ever as our institutions and our students continue to recover from the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. On behalf of everyone at ACCT and our partners at Aacc, we thank you for showing up. For those of you who might have missed the morning session due to travel interruptions or alarm clock malfunctions, I am Jim Cooksey, ACCT Board Chair and Trustee at Moberly Area Community College in Missouri. Joining me on the stage today will be American Association of Community College Board Chair Richard Rhodes, who also serves as Chancellor of Austin Community College in Texas. We're excited to offer a program today designed to help you interact with and advocate effectively to members of Congress and the administration. We all know our colleges can help and create a stronger economy, bouncing back from the pandemic and creating greater opportunities for all Americans. As we gather today, key policy decisions are being made about the role of community colleges in our country's future prosperity. We hope you will take full advantage of the summit and participate in its many activities and opportunities. All of us must use our voices to keep elected officials focused on the issues that affect our institutions and our students. Please work hard this week to let Congress know how important it is that they support our efforts. The Legislative Priorities Green Sheet, which was talked about earlier, is available throughout the venue and the event website and via the NLS website. If you need help finding hard copies, ask any staff member. I wish you success, I do wish you success in your visits. And please let us know at ACCT and Aacc know what we can do, how we can help the membership to further your advocacy at this meeting or in the future. Before we begin, please join me in thanking a few of our event sponsors that help make this possible. Ed America is singularly focused on advancing student success through expert support services in federal financial and programs, enrollment support, and student counseling. Simple Health Kit provides affordable, accurate, and rapid testing solutions to people everywhere, including here. Simple Health Kit is performing PCR COVID-19 tests on site at the NLS for interested attendees. The Virtual Care Group specializes in providing affordable telemedicine solutions for students. And finally, Cengage leads affordable learning with digital learning platforms, college textbooks, ebooks, and more. ACCT has partnered with Cengage and others to take a pulse of student, faculty, and administrator perspectives of digital learning at community colleges. You can learn more about the interesting findings of this study today at 2:15. But on behalf of myself, please give them a round of applause. They make this possible. At this time, I'm going to acknowledge two future leaders of ACCT and Aacc. Rose Benavidez is chair-elect of ACCT and a trustee from South Texas College. Rose is back here. And Joseph Schaefer, chair-elect of Aacc, is president of Laramie County Community College in Wyoming. Wherever he is. At this luncheon, it's common to recognize the Aacc and ACC executive committees. So would you please stand and remain standing? AACC and AACCT executive committees. Thank you. I would also, in addition, like to recognize the full board of directors of both associations. I'd like to ask the boards of both associations to please stand and be recognized. Please, both boards, in total. Thank you. Complete lists of both boards are available in your programs. Richard and I are pleased to have such accomplished colleagues to lead our associations. Thank you for making our roles so much easier. I would also like today to recognize our talented and effective CEOs, Walter Bumpus and Jihang Lee. Both presidents are doing fantastic jobs. Unfortunately, Walter is unable to attend this year, and he has asked Richard to make remarks on his behalf. I'd like now to invite Richard and Jihang to make some remarks.
Thank you very much, Jim. So let me just say, on behalf of AACC President and CEO, Dr. Walter Bumpus, the AACC Board, community colleges, and especially our students, I want to bring greetings to you. I want to thank the ACCT Board, President, CEO, Jihang Lee, and all trustees who serve on our communities with passion and with caring for your dedication and collective spirit. I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for your passion for student success with a strong focus today on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thank you for your wisdom and guidance during this 2-year period of unprecedented challenges for community colleges across our nation. Thank you for your collaboration and partnership between our two organizations. Thank you for your leadership at the national, state, and local levels. And so now it's our time to say, let's go to the Hill, let's fight for policy change, for increased funding, so that our students can truly achieve their dreams. So thank you for being here with us, and thank you on behalf of our CEO, Dr. Walter Bumpus.
I have to see what time it is because it's good morning still, 15 minutes till. Good morning, everyone. I can't thank everyone for joining us here in Washington, D.C. To have the lineup that we will have with the First Lady this morning, with Dr. Cardona coming after me as part of this presentation. The Secretary of Labor will be joining us on Tuesday. The work you have done in the last 2 years. Think about when we were last here in Washington, D.C. It was pre-pandemic or a little bit pandemic, and what your institutions have done and thrived in this environment of supporting your students. And the work we do here today, the work that we did yesterday, the work that we did last year, we could not have done this without our institutional supports. The AACC and the ACCT teams have been working in concert to ensure that all of our students get the money that they need. And today, tomorrow, Wednesday, the day after, we still need you to continue that work. You see some of this happen. For example, last Friday, we had a very important vote on short-term Pell. We need to get that into place. We have to get that into the Senate bill, we have to get into the compromise, and ultimately pass into legislation. This is how sausage is made in Washington, D.C. And unfortunately, sometimes it's arduous and it's difficult. We were not successful to get free community college, but we will ensure and fight as hard as possible to get our other priorities. And that's why we need you to be visible, to be active, and to be engaged with our membership, to your legislators and others. And I just want to thank the membership for participating in this event. I want to thank the AACC Board of Directors and my colleagues and the staff at AACC for joining us at this event, and also a special acknowledgement to our chair and the ACCT board for their support in me and our team in doing this work. And I know that I've gone over 2 minutes, at least my staff will be counting on this. So we will get going because I know that you aren't actually here to see me, but you're here to see somebody else. So, Mr. Chair.
Please give these two gentlemen another round of applause. They do wonderful work. And now I'd like to call Rose Benavides, our chair-elect, to the stage to introduce our speaker. Rose?
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce United States Secretary of Education, Dr. Miguel Cardona. Dr. Cardona was sworn in as the 12th Secretary of Education on March 2nd, 2021. He is the first Latino to hold the position of Connecticut Commissioner of Education. He began his career educating and inspiring Connecticut's youth as a fourth grade teacher in Meriden public school system, the same school district he attended as a child. Secretary Cardona became the youngest school principal in the state at age 28, serving in the position for 10 years before taking on a role addressing the district's performance and evaluation process and ultimately rising to the position of assistant superintendent. Now, please join me in welcoming Secretary Cardona.
Thank you. Let me tell you, it's great to be here. Thank you, Rose, for the introduction. Doesn't it feel great to be back in person, seeing your colleagues again? It's great to be together. I want to thank you all for bringing your best each day, and especially during this challenging time. And I know the First Lady was here this morning and got you all going, yes? And I have to follow her, so just bear with me, please. The reality is, we all know that having as the most trusted advisor to the president, someone that understands the work that you do, there's nothing better. That's why it's our moment. It is our moment. Yes, leading during a pandemic is hard, but it is our moment. It's tested us, this pandemic, in ways that we could never have imagined just 2 years ago. When you were sitting here 2 years ago, we knew what was coming on the horizon maybe, but we thought it might have been a 2-week disruption, right? 2 years later, we're still realizing the impact it's having. Yet, the leaders in this room not only have shown up, but you've stepped up. You're here because improving post-secondary education has never been more critical. Throughout this challenging time, your innovation, your flexibility, and resilience have been awe-inspiring. Community colleges are one of the nation's best treasures. And people are recognizing that. And now is the time that we amplify that message. I'm serious. If not you, then who? If not you, then who? To amplify that message. They're engines of economic growth and social mobility. They open doors to provide opportunity. The name says it all. Community. And I've been fortunate, really. It's really made this experience as Secretary of Education greater than I could have imagined the visits that I've had at community colleges, where I see signs of recovery in our country when community colleges share what they're doing to lift students and bring them back. While some colleges may prioritize chasing each other's college rankings and wooing affluent students from elite high schools, community colleges are doing real work to build pathways to good jobs and lifelong careers for all. Education and training in community college is such an important piece of our students' path to higher paying, stable jobs. You know, research shows that only 20% of today's high school graduates get good jobs directly out of high school. Just 20%. That's why I'm really excited about initiatives like community college industry partnerships. These partnerships connect students to local businesses, to chambers of commerce, and other employers. They create pathways to even more high-demand jobs, thanks to unprecedented investments by the Biden administration. In fact, the bipartisan infrastructure law will add an average of 1.5 million jobs per year for the next 10 years. You are at the heart of that work to prepare our students. As you all know, an important gateway to rewarding and fulfilling careers is post-secondary education, both being able to afford and complete college. Research shows that even a 10% increase in public funding for higher education boosts completion rates by nearly 15%. That's why we'll keep working so hard so that community colleges have the resources they need so that students can achieve their goals. No student, especially students who are first-generation college students, like I was, should ever wonder if they should apply for college or how to pay for it or whether they belong there. Since day one, this administration has been focused on giving students and families the support they need to afford college. For example, the American Rescue Plan set aside more than $10 billion for community college through the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund, or HERF. Yeah, clap for that. You know, I'm going to say something. We're educators, we're leaders, we're trustees. We're focusing on solutions, but please, don't let this week go by without sharing the impact of those HERF dollars on the families you serve. Make sure they hear you. Make sure they hear you. Everyone should know somebody by name in your community because you're sharing their stories. Like in Mississippi, 2 community colleges use HERF funds to offer up to 12 credits of free summer courses. And in New Jersey, Bergen County Community College used HERF. You hear? All right. They got front rows too. They worked really hard to subsidize on-campus childcare slots, removing barriers to learning for students who are parents. And I met one of those parents recently, and she was so thrilled about the opportunity to go back because the college did that. There's so many success stories. As I said before, I encourage you to share them with us. How many of you came here to DC with the story of someone who was helped based on the work that you're doing with HERF dollars? Raise your hand, please. Raise your hand. Okay. Please, I'm not going to call you up, don't worry. I saw some hands go down, they were a little nervous. Please make sure that as you're doing your advocacy, as you're having conversations, people get to know those stories. People have to understand that the American Rescue Plan funds, it's about people, it's about families. It's about people getting back on track. And you are the messengers of those stories today and this week. And there's even more we're doing to help bring college within reach for all. For example, to help students and their families compare the cost and values of degrees and certificates from colleges and universities, the department hosts a free online tool, the College Scorecard. Thank you. The scorecard provides information about graduation rates, the typical debt burden for graduates, post-college salaries, repayment patterns, and more. Last year alone, the scorecard got over 1.6 million visits online. This is an invaluable tool to help students find the best fit for their post-secondary success. And today, I'm pleased to announce that the department has enhanced and updated the college scorecard. You'll see, we updated information on debt burdens, post-enrollment income for students. For the first time since 2018, the scorecard now has updated data about students' post-college earnings at an institution. And the scorecard once again features the share of students who are better off financially for having gone to a college. The scorecard is more than a tool for students. The data we publish and that other organizations use help shine a spotlight on colleges doing extraordinary work to ensure their students get all the way to graduation. Take Valencia College in Florida, which serves a majority of students of color. Valencia has dramatically narrowed equity gaps in their completion rates for Latino students and white students. California's De Anza College is narrowing gaps too. All right. Hispanic and Asian students make up 2 out of 3 enrolled students, and graduation rates for those student groups have also risen. Data from the scorecard gives us inspiration for the work that thousands of other colleges can do. But the Biden administration's commitment to supporting colleges doesn't stop there. The First Lady and I recently announced $198 million to support colleges and universities serving students with the greatest unmet needs related to the pandemic. And in this work, we're listening to you too. We know that you're dealing with enrollment issues or enrollment drops. So we're delivering relief to student loan borrowers, improving aid processes, and strengthening loan service protections. We overhauled the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, and we've canceled more than $15 billion in student loan debt in 1 year. 1 year. You know, it's really important that we address the root of the issue. Well, yes, it's important to talk about loan forgiveness and the challenges that borrowers have now. We're serious about addressing the root of the issue. So 5 years from now, we're not in the same position. And we're proud of the work that we're doing to fix policies that were voted on but never enacted. In fact, they were implemented in ways that didn't keep students at the center. We're going to change that. And in 1 year, we did more forgiveness than any other administration. And we're not done. We've also extended the pause on payments to help 41 million borrowers transition smoothly back to repayment. And that's saving borrowers $5 billion a month. And because the diversity and promise of our people is our greatest strength, the President has proposed expanding access and increasing funding for Pell Grants for students, which is critical too, including our dreamers, porque ellos también se merecen la oportunidad, ¿verdad que sí? We've increased federal funding for institutions that serve high populations of students of color and students from low-income backgrounds, including our community colleges. We know the plan is ambitious, but as I said at the beginning, we know that this is our moment. It's our moment to remove more barriers so college is affordable to everyone. It's our moment to continue to champion college completion and double down our efforts that lead to more career success. It's our moment to unapologetically support inclusive institutions so every student feels welcome and valued. Together, with the same passion and the same urgency we've had over the last 2 years to safely reopen our schools, we're going to make education the great equalizer we know it can be. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your work. Thank you.
Thank you for those amazing comments, Secretary, and thank you for making time out of your busy schedule to join us. So we want to advise the audience that the Secretary has been gracious enough to allow us about 20 minutes for question and answers from college leadership or students. This is not a press opportunity, so we'd ask that you please use the same microphones that we used earlier today for questions. Please line up and we'll take one from the other. We'll ask that you keep your questions concise and that you refrain from follow-ups in order to give as many college leaders and students an opportunity to speak directly to the Secretary, which an opportunity may not present itself anytime soon. So having said that, we will begin with a question that I have for the Secretary first, just to begin things off. Okay. Secretary, you shared some of this earlier, but one of the things that we'd like to let our audience know is many are here for the first time to visit with elected officials on our congressional offices, agencies, Department of Labor, Department of Education. How would you advise them, and what message would you think would resonate as they're making these visits, whether it's in person or virtually?
Thank you for that question. And, you know, I understand there are students in the room, too. Raise your hand if you're a student. Yes, let's give them a round of applause. I asked that for a reason. Let's remember who we serve. I love the fact that many of you have students on your panels, on your boards. We have to be driven by student voice. So my message to you is, yes, we're going to continue fighting for community colleges. Make sure that in at least every other sentence, you push universal access for community colleges when you talk to folks on the Hill. Could you do that? But also share a story. You know, for me, I'm a father. I have a high school senior and a sophomore. So all of them have family members that have been impacted by the pandemic. Bring a story that can help them understand how whether the ARP funds have helped or what you're trying to do and what you want to see and how that connects to the students you serve, to the families you serve, to the community. And please be explicit about the economic imperative in the support of community colleges. Okay, the moral imperative matters, but the economic imperative matters also. When I visited community colleges and I talked with leaders about how their community colleges are helping the economy, don't let that go by without them understanding that the decisions that they make are providing economic opportunities for their community and their state. So that's my message.
Perfect, wonderful, wonderful advice. All right, and as you can see, we've already have a group of individuals that would like to address you, and we'll start with the first microphone here, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Barreto. I'm a board member from Bergen Community College, Boricua from the Bronx, and I want to thank you. Es un honor estar aquí con usted.
Gracias.
Thank you. I want to bring up, we've been discussing the low-income students and having to take out loans and monies that's needed. Also, it's affected, especially in a county like Bergen, where parents lost their jobs. So kids that were in a four-year institution, their parent passed away or their parent lost their job, now they want to continue. They need to be the ones that work for their families. And now they had to take on the burdens of taking loans that they never expected to take. And I think what's been great so far is having that extension given where people had time to pay back these loans. And I'm just going to make an ask that if that can be extended, I know it expires in May, but if it can be extended for a couple of more months, because there are still people that aren't on their feet. There are people that have never been out of work, and now they're out of work, and they don't know what they're doing. And this is the only lifeline they have to have their kids continue to study, to have their kids continue to do the things, and then take up the reins and run the family. So I'm just asking if we can make that push and get that done.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you for the kind words at the beginning. When I tell you to think of a story, a vignette, I'm gonna give it back. Bergen, wonderful visit. Kajia is who I remember the most. Nothing against you all. You're wonderful leaders. But I remember Kajia. She's a student there who said, my twins are now being taken care of because the school is providing childcare, and I can continue on my dreams, and I can continue to follow my dreams. So I hear you, and I appreciate what you do, and I recognize that people are in a tough position right now. And part of the reason why we extended it is because we realize, especially with Omicron, that people are still trying to get on their feet. And we need to continue to hear stories. We need to try to make sense. The announcement that I made at Bergen was $198 million to help universities that provide some of those basic needs so some of those folks could come back. So I appreciate that, and we're going to continue to advocate based on what we're hearing from you. But let me just, thank you very much for that, but let me also say, as a country, we have to take a look at what opportunities lie in crisis. there are people who were not thinking about college 2 years ago that now might be listening. We've all heard about the Great Resignation, the Great Reshuffle, whatever you want to call it. People are having epiphanies about what they want to do. They want to skill up. They want to see what they can learn so they can change paths. Let's take this opportunity also, not only to address those we're losing and we're trying to get back, but there are a bunch of people out there that want to go back into school if approached the right way, and I know community colleges can get that done.
Thank you. Sir, in the back.
Yes, thank you so much for being with us at this important conference. My name is Frank Reyes, and I'm from the San Bernardino Community College District in Southern California. Southern California has 175 Hispanic serving institutions alone in the state. We have over 600 Hispanic serving institutions throughout the country. I know that for a fact that the administration is pushing for monies for historically black colleges, which I think it's great, but do not forget Hispanic serving institutions. We educate all students, not only just the Hispanic, but also African American, Native Americans. I know that there's been a formula that is already calculated that the historically black colleges are going to get quite a bit of funding in terms of capital finance, and they've done a wonderful job. Our communities also need it. So I understand, Mr. Secretary, you're going to be part of the developing that formula for the $1.5 billion that is going to be distributed for capital finance. Our colleges, our libraries, our research buildings need help. When you calculate that formula, please do not forget that Hispanic serving institutions educate a lot of all students. So please, I ask you to please be creative in doing that.
Thank you for that comment, and I certainly agree that that has to be given a lot of attention as well, and we have to continue to listen to folks like that represent HSIs to make sure that we're hearing their needs as well. And we know at the department how important it is to support HSIs. I think 27% of the population is Latino, and it's growing. We have to make sure that we're supporting our HSIs and other institutions as well. But thank you for that comment, and know that we are listening and we are aware of the importance of HSIs in our country. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Reza, and yeah, we would ask if you would just please remove your mask briefly to ask a question to make sure that the Secretary can hear the whole question. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reza. Mr. Secretary, welcome to the event that is near and dear to your heart. Reza Jafari from Chesapeake College. We have the largest and the fastest growing population in our state are the Latinos. And they're all coming to us, well, not just for finding a job, but they're here to create jobs. They want to create opportunities. Is there something that you can comment and help us to understand how the Department of Education, Department of Labor, and Commerce can work together, and they are already doing it some, so that collaboration and cooperation can help us to create centers of entrepreneurship and innovation in our colleges. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for the question and for being here. You know, we have an opportunity, and it's not lost on us in the administration that we have to do better. Going back to how we led or how our agencies worked together before the pandemic is not good enough. And I'll tell you, Secretary Walsh, Secretary Raimondo, and I have met several times already about how we can really shape what interagency work looks like. We're committed. We know the Build Back Better has over $10 billion for workforce partnerships and apprenticeships. We're eager to make sure that community colleges are a big part of that. And the three of us, we're excited about that opportunity to not only make sure that it goes to support community colleges, but that we create a model of interdependency between Department of Labor, Department of Education, and Commerce, so that states could also create an infrastructure to get the job done more efficiently and more effectively. So thank you for that question. That's something that I'm eager to get going with very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Yes, I'm Gabriel Buena, President of the Board, the Los Angeles Community College District. So in Los Angeles, we're about to consider a few $1 billion in student housing bonds. So I wanted to know, is the federal government potentially might match that or support that? Semicolon.
Good use of grammar.
Right.
It's a new thought.
As a district, we're approximately 60% represent Central American, Mexican American, other Latino groups, is the department potentially might support dual language teaching as a function to increase enrollment and workforce? Thank you.
Love the way you're thinking, first of all, helping address the basic needs, housing, right? We want to make sure that we're very clear. We've had a lot of inquiries about flexibilities. Could the money be used for this? So I want to make sure that we're accessible to you. That's my answer on the first one, to make sure that we can be accessible to promote innovative practices, which we know we need to get more students engaged. And with regard to your dual language instruction, you know, it's funny, at the K-12 level, I'm pushing to make sure that we push language learning in a way that honors native language, right? First language, first culture. I love the idea of making sure we meet our students where they are, not only with housing, but where their linguistic needs are. I would definitely love to hear more about that and see how we can support programming that opens doors for more students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Irene Watts from Henry Ford College. Thank you, Secretary, for visiting us last year. And my daughter was not impressed with our selfie, and she rolled her eyes at us. So
We'll have to get another one today.
yes, we do, just to make her now more embarrassed. But beyond this week and going to our legislators, what can we do the short term and long term to continue this conversation for free college? Because we have so many students who've been hearing about this, and then what? So what can we continue to do for that?
Well, thank you. And you know, Henry Ford College was a great visit in Michigan there. And, you know, there are so many places that I have the benefit of seeing what's happening across the country. And it's my responsibility, it's my job to make sure that we're lifting up best practices. We learn best from one another. And I know across this room here, there are so many innovative practices that if we just continue to lift best practices, we're going to get better as a country. You know, I think that's an important point. Your question really brings up the role of leaders during the pandemic and post-pandemic. We can focus on the problem all day, and there's going to be a problem after. We're never going to punch out. We're never going to be done. But we often just breeze by some of the amazing things that are transformational, that 3 years ago we would never consider. We must share the stories. We must engage our students. We must engage our families. We must talk about Ruth, who I met in Michigan on that visit, who wasn't thinking about college, ended up in the hospital during the pandemic and said, you know what, I want to go into the healthcare field. I'm going to look to see if I have Pell eligibility, and I'm going to go back to college. This is someone that wasn't thinking about college. So as leaders, I ask you, what are you doing to control the narrative? What are you doing to be on offense? Because you know there are so many that, especially folks who did not vote for the AARP, whose constituents are benefiting from it, who are still talking that we don't need it. Let's lift those stories. Let's talk about Ruth. Let's talk about Kazia. Let's bring them here with us. So I guess the summary of that response is our work has just started. Sharing the great work. We don't often like to toot our own horn in education, and you're more focused on solving problems. But if we don't lift the stories of the students who are benefiting, the families who are benefiting, the economy that's getting better, then all we're going to hear is the negative. I need you to drown it out with positive. That's my message to you.
Thank you.
Perfect. So our apologies, but we know the Secretary has a very busy schedule, so we have time for one more question. And based on how we're using Yes Ma'am with the mic, please, if you'd ask your question.
Yes, hi, my name is Yvette Machado, and I'm a student senator at the College of Southern Nevada, a proud minority and Hispanic serving institution. First, I want to start off by saying gracias, Secretary Cardona, for representing our community and the others who share in our mission to claim our equity in this country. As a daughter of immigrants and first-generation student myself, I'm honored to share the space with all of you. My question is based on homeless students, so students facing like housing transitions. They're currently unable to apply for FAFSA, so they fall under the radar in receiving emergency services. There's an entire community of vulnerable students that are unable to take the steps to apply for school because they don't have an address to attach to the FAFSA. And currently, at least in Nevada, there are no initiatives for like P.O. Box or temporary addresses to push these students into life-saving education. And I wanted to know, how can I begin the narrative that advocates for our homeless youth in their right to this life-changing education?
Thank you for that. What's more powerful than a student advocating for students who are homeless in Washington, D.C. to the Secretary of Education? What's more powerful than that? We are so fortunate to be leading at this point in our country's history. So to you, what I would say is, this is a critically important issue. Just this morning, my wife, who's a at-risk college coordinator for a school district, shared with me that she was talking to a mother who's not going to fill out the FAFSA because she's afraid of putting the Social Security number down. This morning. It's real. We know that American Rescue Plan provided $100 million to address homelessness in schools and issues around that. We know, with the mention of the grant that I mentioned earlier, the close to $200 million to address basic needs, that also includes the symptoms of homelessness and what that means for applying for different things at the institution, but even applying for schools. So while the resources matter, listening and making sure that the Department of Education has its doors open to folks like you who represent or are sharing real-time stories that what's happening now during the pandemic, so that we can use our policy arm, but also the bully pulpit to make sure that we're pushing for those best practices that bring those students back in. You know, we know you're dealing with enrollment declines because a lot of the students that you were serving were just making it before the pandemic, and now they've fallen on really hard times. It's our responsibility to get those students, including those who are dealing with housing insecurity, food insecurity, childcare insecurities, and bring them back in. So while we have done work with the homelessness funds that were there, and we're doing more to put funding for community colleges that serve those students in greatest need, we want to continue to hear those stories, and we want to continue to advocate with you on behalf of those students. So there's a lot more to do. We need to hear from you, not only the challenges that you're having, but what you're doing, because our job would be to lift those best practices. We learn best from one another. Thank you for the question. I want to just leave, before I leave, by saying, yes, it's been a challenge, but you're in positions of leadership, you're trustees, you're student trustee members at the most critical time in our country's education history, a time where we can hit reset on the things that didn't work, and we could really reimagine. And that's why I'm telling you, continue to fight for universal community college. It's just because it's one of those things that was taken out of the proposal doesn't mean it's not something that's good for our country. So as long as I'm secretary, I'm going to fight for that. I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to listen to you, and I appreciate all you do. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, a louder round of applause for Secretary Cardona for being such a passionate advocate and who understands our stories. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you, and lunch will be served.